Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back, Heat Seekers. It is the end of night 2. It's been a long, strange trip. We're 2/3 of the way there. And tonight's going to be fun because we had some crazy stuff happen. We had running backs that didn't get drafted. We have quarterbacks that got overdrafted. We've got all sorts of shenanigans. The Packers still have an Aaron Rodgers replacement. If you have your A. Rodgers jerseys, keep them handy. You might be able to replace those. But, like we talked about last night, we are mocking. Packers mocking right now, currently. But
mocking a lot.
We are mocking lots tonight. So we are going to mock draft. We're going to do 3 rounds tonight. With everything that's been going on, we're going to do 3 rounds of mock draft tonight. We're going to be doing a Superflex mock, and it's going to be fun because we had all sorts of stuff happen. We've had 4 running backs drafted, which was a little bit of a surprise to some of us as we were prepping for the show tonight. We've had lots of wide receivers. We've had tight ends go before tight ends that we expected to get drafted. We've seen all sorts of cool stuff. So we wanted to continue to update our mock drafts live on the spot, see if a rapid reaction would cause anybody to slide up and down the draft board. Things are a little different tonight, though. We don't have Rick Butts with us. He's working hard at keeping everything updated. We've subbed him out, and we brought in the man, the myth, my Monday cohort, Kraig Reith, to join me and Sully tonight, and we're going to have some fun with it. Kraig, how's it going, man? What you been thinking so far of this draft?
It's been a lot to keep up on as you're trying to process all this and get content out. It's fun every year, and it's nice having group chats to talk about it, even if we're not going live and we're putting out other content. But like you said, it's really interesting, especially with some of these bigger name guys that in the community were just higher rated, but clearly the NFL, for whatever reason, if it's because of not having the same testing or as much film or whatever, there's plenty of guys that are just falling that I didn't see anyone really predicting. So where they go day 2 and if they ending up being relevant at all will be super interesting, as there's still decent landing spots, but you'd have to think that their potential immediate impact is lessened if you're going to be in the 4th round or after.
That's it.
How are you doing, Sully?
My brain's kind of fried. It's been a long 2 days, but it's been a ton of fun. And to your point, our group chat kind of keeps you going as you're pumping out all this content. And shout out to the guys that aren't on the stream, not on our team, that have been doing a hell of a job and pounding out article after article to keep it going. So I'm good. I'm very interested to see what's going on. I haven't really, through all of this, had time to really absorb who's gone where and what's happening. I'm more focused on the guys that haven't been drafted, to be honest, that have been. And I'm very interested to see how some of these quarterbacks, some of these tight ends that I didn't envision being selected where they were, will impact this mock draft. So let's do it, Bradley.
Absolutely. Let's roll. So I want to thank our boy Patrick Davis. He's been helping us out, making sure these mocks are filled, ready to roll. So we are going to just hit it. We're going to let it get going, and we're going to have fun with it, and we're going to analyze it as we go. I just don't even know what to expect. It's been such a strange 3 rounds we've had so far with some of the guys we expected to go that haven't gone. So it'll be fun to see what the community thinks. We did get a variety of different drafters tonight. So what you would have seen last night's mock draft is going to be different tonight because we have plenty of different faces in the room. And it'll be fun to see where some of these quarterbacks get slotted, because we saw 3 go tonight that I think some expected at least these 3 to go, but where they went, I think, is fun. Sullivan, you are a Vikings guy. How do you feel about getting Kellen Mond?
I don't mind it, to be totally honest. They haven't had a serviceable backup for Kirk Cousins ever in his tenure in Minnesota. If Mond has to play, it's probably not a good scenario in this upcoming season, but Cousins is uncertain going forward, and Mond, I like the dual threat ability of him. I like the rushing upside. I also like that he has an absolute ton of college experience and he's super young. So there might be something there. I'm not overly optimistic that he's a franchise type quarterback, but he might be able to keep the lights on for a while if we need him to.
And Kraig, what do you think about Davis Mills going to Houston? That seemed like a fun spot because we don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson. But what's your kind of immediate reaction to something like that happening?
I think they're doing kind of what they need to do, which is shooting their shot. It's their first pick, I believe, that they had in the draft, and clearly they are not certain about what's going to be happening with their quarterback position long term. Davis Mills himself is an interesting guy, highly recruited, seems to have all the tools that you want, but hasn't played a lot in college for a variety of reasons and hasn't played amazing. I think he's gotten better over the time that he's played, but he clearly, to me, a developmental type guy. We have no idea what's going to happen with Watson. Tyrod is good enough so that they aren't going to be completely embarrassed every week. But I think Mills, they want to see if they can try to develop a guy while they're not sure what's going on with Watson. So I don't have a problem with them taking it there. Now, whether or not he was the right quarterback to take, a lot of people are going to have different opinions on that. But I don't mind them doing it there.
I don't either. I think it's interesting. I still not entirely sure exactly what Houston's doing, though. They took Mills and Nico when there's plenty of need all over that team, from offensive line to defense. I mean, we know they lost J.J. Watt in the offseason, and there's plenty of spots that need a little TLC. So going with more, I don't want to say fluff positions, but positions that you could have probably waited on to try to fix some of these other holes before you threw in a quarterback. It's just strange to me the way they're building the roster, but I'll be interested to see how it turns out for them. I just don't know how I anticipate this rolling out for them in the future. I just don't understand. But that's not for me to understand because I'm not in Houston's front office.
I don't think they understand what they're doing either, to be totally honest.
In fairness, I mean, they have and whoever started it there, the old regime left them a complete mess, and it doesn't seem like the new one handled it particularly well when they came in. So they're starting from being way behind anyway. So, they're going to have to be creative. Hopefully the owner gives them some time to figure it out. But they got to, in free agency, they did what they could. They had to go out and sign veterans because no one amazing of note wanted to go there to be part of that mess, which makes complete sense with how it's been run. So it's going to take several years for them to be relevant again. But I think, if they want to try to build some guys and take some younger guys for the future, the draft is how they're going to have to do it because they aren't going to get them otherwise.
Yeah, and I guess the reason that perhaps you go with the skilled players over perhaps needs on the other side of the football is you got to do something to get that fan base a little bit excited. And perhaps the future of a quarterback and the future of your wide receiver is a little bit more exciting than a linebacker or a safety for the average football fan. So that could be why they're going that route as well.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And then on the other side of it, Nico Collins, I think, is an interesting fit there. They lost Hopkins. They don't have Fuller anymore. They could have used some help. Do you think Isaiah Coulter is still a thing with a guy like Collins coming into town? Because they're very similar when it comes to kind of some of their attributes. Sully, how do you feel about the receiving core that Houston has to go with these quarterbacks, whomever may be the day one starter?
I still like Brandon Cooks. I think he's an overlooked wide receiver that still has the ability to play. Obviously, he's an injury concern. He's probably a concussion away from no longer playing the game, so that's a concern. Coulter, I just don't really see it. I think when you have management teams change like Houston did, and the guy has almost no draft capital, he's really up against it. But they've had some weird guys pop up and produce for them, right? Like Chad Hansen came out of nowhere late last season and did a little bit of work for them. They brought in a whole bunch of guys. Like they brought in Dante Moncrief for some reason. They brought in a lot of what I'll call B-level veterans. So I don't know what they're really doing other than perhaps they're just trying to create some competition in camp to get something going. Who knows? But I think that there's a need for a Nico Collins there for sure, because I just don't think they really have anybody to lean on into this season and especially into the future.
And then I think one of the more interesting picks that I think we could see really jump up this draft board, Trey Sermon is San Francisco. Kraig, what do you think about San Francisco adding a running back at this stage of the game? And do you think Sermon is viable? I mean, do you think he's a guy that you're going to target?
I'm probably not going to go out of my way to target him. I try to not let the actual landing spot itself affect me too much with my rankings. Draft capital matters more than landing spot, I feel. Trey Sermon's really interesting because he's a guy that, has sort of the skill set that you would want for what was an all-around back in the NFL, and we don't really have a whole lot of those anymore. But it's an offense where they like to utilize their talent and play to their strength. And going forward, there isn't a whole lot there. I think it's like Jermichael Hasty might be the only other guy signed beyond a year there in their backfield right now. So he has a potential to take over and be the guy if they want to have just a lead back, so to speak. But he's got to show it because he really hasn't shown a whole lot in the past couple of years outside of the college playoffs. And that's all well and good, but you got to be doing that consistently in the NFL, not just when it's a big game. So he'll certainly be moving up draft boards. Will I end up with any shares of him? I mean, currently where I have draft picks in my leagues, I don't think I probably will because he's probably mid to late first round at this point if you're in a one quarterback league.
What do you think, Mr. Sullivan? What are you thinking about Sermon and everything going on there?
I don't know. It's sort of messy for me because he is, after all, the fourth running back off the board. So he's going to move up and he's going to be a little bit hyped. I'm with Kraig. I'm not a big landing spot guy, but you have to admit that's probably a good spot for him to land. Kyle Shanahan's pretty creative, and he's shown that he can utilize multiple running backs throughout a season. Mostert is older. Wilson's a free agent at the end of the year, to Craig's points as well. So he's probably a guy that I'm going to let slide by. I have some concerns with him coming into this weekend. I don't really love the upright running style. I don't like the fact that he couldn't shake Master Teague in that backfield at Ohio State. And I don't like the fact that the vast majority of his production in the 2020 season came in about 2 football games. So where I have picks in my personal rookie drafts, I'm more in a rebuild mode, and that's easier for me to let the running back go because I'm nowhere near competing. But I can totally get behind someone taking him at the back end of the first round or early second round in a Superflex league if they're looking to fill a void at their running back position. Absolutely.
I like it. I think that's an interesting conversation to be had. I think it's a good take. The thing that worries me is I don't want people to jump to conclusions and really overdraft a guy. So Kraig, what else did you think about this draft? As I'm working on getting our mock filled up properly, but we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Sorry, folks. We'll be going live in just a second here. Kraig, give me some thoughts about what else you're thinking about this draft class so far.
So for stuff more so from today, because you guys with Rick did a great job covering the first round yesterday. Elijah Moore went to an interesting situation with Zach Wilson, and they're building up that offense there. I think, unfortunately for me, Jamison Crowder is going to end up being the odd man out. Javonte Williams in Denver with Melvin only having a year left. I really like that spot, and I think it's cementing him as sort of that 2 or 3 running back for most people. In the third round, I really liked Hunter Long going to Miami. I think he's, as he showed at Boston College, he can be a great piece, and he won't be the focus of the offense sort of like he was there. But with Mike Gesicki really only having a year left, depending on if they pick up the option, another one, he could be a great long-term tight end. Talked about Collins. Anthony Schwartz, I actually like as sort of a different element to that offense that they have in Cleveland. And I'm sure we'll get to the quarterbacks when we get the mock going, so I won't go into those too deep. But who else interested you on day 2 here, Sully?
I'm trying to remember who got picked, to be totally honest with you. It was a bit of a whirlwind evening. I'm with you. I like Anthony Schwartz. Where he went, I think he could be a sneaky value. I'm just sort of looking because I literally don't remember. Yeah, there's some interesting ones. Josh Palmer really kind of jumped out to me to the Chargers. I thought with all the wide receivers that we've watched this offseason and guys that are still available, that one surprised me. There's a lot of little things in here. I liked what my Vikings did. I thought they had a pretty good day two. Started off with Mond and then filled some needs, some edge rushers and so forth. So I was happy to see them do that. I think that there's still some holes there for them to fill. And with all this wide receiver talent falling, I'm hoping the Vikings can pick up another wide receiver, maybe to be a little bit more relevant than BB is for them currently. So that's kind of my take.
Yeah, I think we've had some fun places, landing spots for some of these guys. I think both offensive and defensive perspective. As an IDP guy, I love a lot of what happened tonight. I think there were some really fun spots. Your Vikings, I think, got a steal with Patrick Jones. I don't think he's an immediate impact, but I think in time he could really develop into something nice. Uh, I think there's plenty of potential that came, but I also think there was just plenty of players that hadn't happened, and it's really surprising to me. Tomorrow, I think, will be fun. We saw a lot of draft trades tonight, which we saw a little bit on night one, but tonight we saw, I mean, they were just, as we were getting the articles and everything out, I mean, this was just coming in like a flurry. So I think we're going to see more of that tomorrow, especially with some of these bigger names that are sitting out there still. It'll be fun to see how that kind of what that turns into for some of these players. I think the Hunter Long to Miami could be one of the bigger sleeper positions when it comes to your drafts because people are going to overlook him because Gesicki's there currently. Gesicki, and Kraig pointed out earlier, Gesicki's not going to be there for long. He could very well be a free agent after this year if they don't re-sign him. I think that could be huge for Hunter Long because he was basically the focal point of Boston College's offense last year. And he's a fun pick. He's a fun player. Now, Brevin Jordan is the name that people will be surprised about, although the tea leaves were he's sliding down the boards because of, and there's any number of reasons, but I still think he's got talent and potential. But Sully, I don't know if you had mentioned this on any of our shows here recently, but talk about your numbers about after pick 100 and what that means to a potential fantasy value for a player.
Don't have the numbers in front of me off the top of my head, but I do know that in terms of fantasy relevance, you really want to have a top 100 pick. I believe the hit rate, and my hit rates are like top 12 quarterback, top 24 running back, top 36 wide receiver, and top 12 tight end. I believe, and I could look it up, but I believe that you're looking at about a 17 to 20% hit rate, meaning that the player drafted after pick 100 has about a 17% chance of ever delivering you one of those fantasy starting seasons. So it goes down a ton. I'm very interested to see if this year's bucks the trend. It's such a weird year. We didn't scout properly. We didn't have normal college seasons. We didn't have a normal NFL season. So I'm very interested to see if this impacts the data. And the data that I'm talking about goes back to 2010. So we'll see if it has a difference. I'm not sure, but it's not a groundbreaking discovery that the earlier you're picked in the draft, you're probably the better the football player you are. So
right. But
it is interesting at pick 100. It seems to be a bit of a falling off mark.
It'll be interesting to see how that affects some of these guys that haven't been drafted yet. We've seen plenty of interesting players go. We haven't talked a lot about Javonte Williams recently.
Yeah.
But we've all been big fans of him. At least for the most part. Most of the team's been big fans of. Denver is an interesting landing spot. Obviously they've got Melvin Gordon, and that's really about it. And Gordon obviously has been around for a little bit, so he could very well disappear quite quickly. Kraig, what's your take on Javonte Williams? Where do you have Matt kind of in terms of your running backs currently?
I have him in the top two, which is where I had him before. I know Etienne went to a potentially really explosive offense, and I had liked Williams more going into our review after this year's college season, and I honestly like the spot better too because there's fewer running back type mouths to feed, and of course that could always change, but going forward right now with Melvin Gordon only having the 1 year left, it kind of seems like they want to move on from him with what they invested in Williams. And that's going to be an offense, assuming they have quarterback figured out, that they're going to be explosive and be in a lot of probably high-scoring games with what that in that division. They have a decent offensive line, so I really like the spot along with the player and the draft capital. So all three worked out for me there.
I agree. I think it's definitely an interesting spot for him. On the flip side of that, we saw players like Rondale Moore go to Arizona. I'm really intrigued to see what that looks like then. I don't know how they're going to distribute and get things, how they're going to get these targets separated between the guys. Sully, as we start this draft, what's your take on Rondale Moore to Arizona? How do you feel about that?
I think I like it. I like the player first and foremost, and I like the spot where he goes. It's an offense that wants to throw the football. It kind of closes the book on Andy Isabella for me. And I don't know if the book was ever opened, but he was a player that I really liked coming out. I'm interested to see what that offense, how they utilize Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore at the same time on the field, will be interesting. Hopkins is still the offense. He's the guy that they're going to run that offense through, and AJ Green's there. So they like to run 4 and 5 wide and go crazy and do all that air raid stuff. So I think it's going to be a little bit interesting. And I think Rondale Moore's biggest area of opportunity is if he can stay healthy and stay on the football field, they're going to get the ball in his hands. And when he has the ball in his hands, he's arguably as creative and electric as anyone in this draft. So that could be a hell of a pick for them.
So I wonder if this really adds some kind of buy low value to a guy like James Conner, because what Arizona's done so far is not address the running back at all. So it's Conner and Edmonds, at least up till this point, and whomever else they may bring in. But Kraig, are you a buyer on a guy like James Conner at the right price? How do you feel about that?
I think he's going to be cheap enough, and within that offense, Kyler is going to take away some of your rushing touchdowns that he would normally have. But if you need more of a power type back in a situation, he's the guy that's going to be used for that. And I think Moore is probably going to hurt someone like Edmonds more down the line if they keep him around, where some of those shorter passes and things and that electric element, I think Moore's better at that. At least what we've seen in college, he was better than Edmonds in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to line up and be a running back or anything like that, but some of the shorter swing passes and screens and thing like that, I think where he can really excel, he'll be used more. So I think Moore hurts Edmonds more. And Conner, he should be cheap in most leagues. I mean, I've seen him going for, a bag of magic beans in a few leagues. So if you need some running back depth, like a fourth running back or something like that, I think he's a perfect guy to go target.
I like it. And I have this set as a snake, so I guess I'm up for 2. Sully, talk about what we've seen so far in the first round of this mock and how you feel about it.
I think it's pretty interesting. So Trevor Lawrence going 1, Lance going 2, I think is understandable. Najee at 3's probably in the range where I think he's going to go in a lot of these types of drafts, but it's arguably could have been a quarterback in that. We did this last night. We had a run of 4 quarterbacks right out of the gate, which I think you're going to see as well. Zach Wilson going at 3rd, I think is interesting, but it all comes down to knowing who's in your draft room and knowing who picked him there. He's got him as his number 2 quarterback, so that makes sense. I think Kraig gets great value with Fields at 4. I love Pitts at 5. And then this is where it gets really wild for me. Like Jamar Chase, ETN, Waddle, Smith, and in the back part of the first round is awesome. I think it's amazing. And Mack Jones is going right where he should go, right towards the back of the first round. And Javonte Williams, I think it's a good spot for him. I think the running backs have come off in the order that I think they'll come off. And, the second round's off to a running start with 2 more what I like to say are good wide receivers that I have high hopes for. So good draft so far.
Yeah,
you're up, Sully.
I'm about to say with you on the clock, we'll hand off to Kraig. Kraig, what's your thoughts about this so far? Superflex round 1 and almost half of round 2.
So we've already sort of seen it. What Sully had talked about before we started. Sermon, it's going, what I feel from what I'd seen anyway, substantially higher than prior. Like he was more towards the end of the second for most of them that I've been seeing. Bateman still right where he had been in Superflex leagues, which I think is fine. I'm a firm believer that just because Lamar Jackson hasn't been amazing at throwing the ball so far, and that offense hasn't been built that way. Doesn't mean it's going to continue to be that way forever. I think they are going to open it up more for him, and I think Bateman is really nice compared to what they already have. So I think that's good value. Amari Rogers is really interesting at 2.5, right after Rondale Moore.
That's a big jump up. That's a big
all
jump
the way
up.
up. Yeah.
That's a full
Especially
round.
with the other A. Rogers news and things not being clear.
Yeah.
It's a risky pick, but it does have really high upside, which is
Sure
fine
does.
for this point in the draft. But him going ahead of someone like Tony, really surprising. And then Davis Mills, there you go.
Well, and I think the thing that we're seeing right now that's hurting the most is a guy like Terrace Marshall who went at 59 to Carolina. He had been going kind of early second, potentially late first in some situations. He's not
Yeah.
even been touched yet in the second round. Uh, and when you look at things like this, you know, some of this could very well be recency bias, but your drafts are going to start in 2 days potentially. I mean, a lot of rookie drafts kick off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So this is what you're seeing. I mean, if you're in Superflex, these are the way things are working for you. You know, and if you guys in the chat have questions or comments, let me know. We will definitely answer any questions you have. We wanted to give you an idea of what's going on currently in the market when it comes to where players are being valued and what you might want to do or where you may want to target guys. And I think this is really intriguing. You know, we've seen, I mean, now Davis Mills has vaulted himself up to quarterback 6 because he's probably potentially, you know, a starter sooner rather than later, depending on what they do with Watson. The thing for me is I don't know if this means they're getting rid of Watson or they want to make sure they have the future in store just in case something doesn't happen. How do you feel about it, Kraig? What do you think about Houston? What do you think about, I mean, do you even like the player?
I think he's a fine developmental guy. There isn't a whole lot known about him because he just didn't play a lot in college, but he has that sort of profile and that pedigree coming out of high school where he has the tools. Now, is Houston a place that's going to be able to take advantage of that? Based on things that we have seen recently, no, but it is a different, you know, front office and a new coach, and they know they have their work cut out for him. I wouldn't bank on him turning out to be anything more than an average starter, but there's enough upside potential that with the complete uncertainty around Watson, I'm fine with them taking their shot at a guy at their first pick because otherwise you're sitting there with Finley and Tyrod. And yeah, maybe you're drafting high next year, but you just don't know. And then who's going to be there? So I'm fine with it because they're years out from really doing anything much, I feel. So why not try?
Yeah, for sure. And this is an interesting one. So we've seen, you know, Schwartz went to Cleveland, Eskridge went to Seattle, and they both kind of jumped up. You know, we weren't talking about them last night as guys that were going in the second round. We're now seeing them at the, you know, kind of in the early part of the third round. Sully, what do you think about these wide receivers? And even the guy after Amon-Ra hasn't been drafted yet. What do you think about third round receiver value like this?
I think it's probably good value here. I don't know. Like, I'm so confused by what's happening in this draft with, I'm just on the clock here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's been an interesting. Oh, but now we saw new Chargers receiver Josh Palmer come off the board, which is a guy that was
I didn't know who he
fairly,
was before tonight.
yeah, fairly relatively unknown wide receiver out of Tennessee, but a bigger kid. You know, he adds some interesting dynamic to that offense because now they have, you know, 3, 4 receivers that they could roll with Guyton and, you know, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And, you know, I mean, they've got a lot of options there. So, Sully, how are you feeling about this group of wide receivers that we're seeing go here in the third round? Even Tutu Atwell going to the Rams. He's now, you know, potentially wide receiver 4 with last year's rookie Van Jefferson.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing here is just the importance of draft capital. And I think a lot of the fantasy community focuses a lot on landing spot, and I understand that. But draft capital matters, and that's totally indicative of what we're seeing here right now. Is there's probably four wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, and a tight end that last night weren't here or shouldn't have been here. And if we did this a week ago, wouldn't have been here either. So I'm comfortable with these guys. I like to trust the NFL organizations know what they're doing when they're drafting these guys over the other wide receivers that perhaps I perceive to be a better talent. I'm going to default to the guys that get paid to do this for a living. So if they feel Tutu's a good guy to take in the third round of the NFL draft, then I'm comfortable with the opportunity that they present here. Palmer's the one guy that I don't know really much about, so I have a hard time commenting on him. I'm going to have to go back and dig in and look and see what he's all about, but that one surprised me. I honestly didn't really know who he was when they picked him. So
You'll have to support him. He's Canadian-born, Sully.
oh, see, I should know that stuff. I'll take him and Chuba, and I'll be fine.
There you go.
Hopefully
Done.
somebody takes Chuba, because Chuba hasn't been taken in the NFL draft yet. This is
Not
really
alone.
interesting to see how this third round really, the second and third round really has changed things. You know, Seth Williams was a guy I was targeting in the second round. I got him at the very last pick in the third round. Kyle Trask, who obviously I may be the only one in the world that seems to like him. He is now Tom Brady's heir apparent in Tampa. He fell all the way down. I've seen him go in the second round in a lot of Superflex drafts. He actually dropped even further. It's interesting to me that a 40-something quarterback, who obviously is defying time, you know, he's been playing a lot longer than everybody else, but he's still much closer to the end than the beginning. Why Kyle Trask wouldn't be a guy people are at least interested in taking a flyer on in Superflex, because you don't know what Tampa's going to do. And if he's the next man up after, well, then he's a starter when Tom Brady's gone. Kraig, what do you think about some of these quarterbacks that fell to the third round? You know, they're kind of the heir apparents at their positions with their teams. Are they even guys that you're even remotely interested in, or do you like where they landed there?
I like Mills and Mond more than Trask myself, and not to rain on your Trask parade, but I think we've talked about this before just with other players like quarterbacks from Ohio State or Alabama quarterbacks or things like that. You get something in your mind, and it's hard to overcome that even if you know it isn't completely logical. I've seen so many quarterbacks, and yes, it was with New England, behind Brady that were built up because they were in that team that he had sort of built and was able to process it the same way as him for short periods of time that just don't completely pan out. Like Matt Castle or Garoppolo hasn't been what they thought he would be. So I think it's a little bit of that on my part, and I just really wasn't overall impressed with him at Florida. I know he had a great year this past year, but Mon to me is just more exciting, and maybe that's my own fault. But because he has all the tools and sort of that athleticism that you're wanting in the current NFL quarterback that everyone finds so exciting. But he is much more raw than Trask too. So, what route do you want to go if you're taking a developmental quarterback for your own team? Because that's really what it comes down to here. We don't know how these guys are going to turn out with their NFL teams, but if you want to push your chips in on one guy, will Mond be ready in a year? Sully, isn't Cousins' contract up in a year?
Yeah, he's got one more year after this. The Vikings have a really interesting mindset, though, that they have zero interest in anyone playing quarterback for them at any time other than Kirk Cousins currently. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop Mond. But yeah, he's got 1 year left. And who knows? We'll see what happens after that.
Absolutely. So that's it, people. That's 3 rounds. That is a really interesting 3 rounds. And I'm not even sure that we're going to see something similar even tomorrow. I think we could see some really fun movement between tonight and tomorrow, and then once we get through all the rest of these 7 rounds, we could see this thing go even crazier. What I am going to tell you is make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification icon, because we'll be back tomorrow night. And tomorrow night, when we get done with round 7, we're going live, and we're going all the way through 5 rounds of a Superflex rookie mock. So you'll see every single pick, all 5 rounds, and get a feel for now we are completely past the draft. You are about to hit your rookie drafts. What are the community thinking? The way that last night to tonight went, all bets are off in my mind, like anything's possible. When you look at this draft, gentlemen, do you have any final thoughts, Kraig, about what you've seen, what you're seeing happen?
Well, I had a question for you. If we would have told you, 2 days ago that in a 3-round rookie mock, even Superflex, 4 tight ends go off the board and Brevin Jordan isn't one of them, I think you would have called us crazy. So, I mean, how much he could still go to a good position as far as team and turnout and all that. But, we've seen so many of these guys, like you had said, Seth Williams, Tylan Wallace, most of the running backs, it wasn't a crazy deep running back class, but there were a lot of guys that different people were interested in that have just been ignored for other people that, Palmer isn't someone that was by and large even talked about in the fantasy community. So, McKitty, unless you're going deep into tight ends, and then there's another one taken. Tremble was taken, and I know he's more of a blocker as far as projection, but he wasn't drafted here. There's just so many weird things I think that we're trying to react to based on the NFL reacting to limited information that you're going to get all of your drafts being even more widely varied than in a normal year. So it'll be fun, but it'll be stressful too.
Yeah, and Kyle and Grant, what's up over there, guys? It's good to see you. Friend of the show, Steffi Smalls, is a big McKitty fan. She was banging the table for him when she was on the show a couple weeks back. So she
took him in our mock.
She did, and I'm sure her Twitter blew up as soon as he got drafted. Brevin Jordan, I'm surprised about, but then when I think about it, and I'd even mentioned in our group chat, there was enough kind of smoke coming out of the Jordan camp with concerns about medicals and things like that it doesn't surprise me thinking about it. But I'm surprised that there are a few guys on the board, and I could see Brevin Jordan go to a team like Houston, which would be a bad idea because they have so many needs. But the way that they've been building with skill position players, I could see it. They need tight end help. They don't really have a lot in the cupboard, so why not? Grant has a question. He wants to know, who is your must-draft player so far with landing spots? Mr. Sullivan, we'll start with you. Who is the guy that you have to get?
I don't know if there is one, to be honest with you. I think who I've really changed my tune on and who I've really warmed up to, and I think landing spot is part of it, but draft capital is as well, as Travis Etienne. I just really like him with Lawrence in that Jacksonville offense, and I think he's got a ton of upside. There's a few guys, but he's probably the one that jumps to the top of my mind.
And great job, J-Wall. It's glad that you pointed out the entire first round of the draft as your other must-draft players.
Well, I hope he has a lot of picks in his leagues.
Right? Kraig, who is your must-draft?
J-Wall tomorrow night.
I know.
Yeah, he'll be on tomorrow. It'll be a fun one. Make sure you tune in for 5 rounds of J-Wall.
It'll be good times.
5 rounds of J-Wall. It should be called that.
Make sure the video is only, from the waist up. We don't need any shorts exposed on their YouTube channel.
5 rounds with J-Wall. That's the name of his autobiography. Kraig, who is your must-draft player?
My must draft. I'm going to go with the other running back that was taken after Javonte Williams. I mean, I became infatuated with, I guess, him over the past year as far as college tape and production, just what he showed. And then the draft, like I said, capital plus landing spot. Sully and I will disagree on that. I just think that the Williams landing spot is better. I don't have a problem with ETN being there. And, the connection with Lawrence is going to be huge, because they already sort of know each other and how they think. But I think you guys talked about that, but there were like 5 different former teammate sets that were reunited in this draft class. That's just nuts. And it makes you wonder, it wasn't a teammate thing with, Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year, but how much input do some of these players now get? Because it seems that way. Maybe it's not that way at all, but it's just seeming like either front officers are thinking like, these guys worked well together. Let's get that connection. They know each other to maybe boost things quicker as far as their connection, or is it just happenstance? I don't know, but it is a really weird anomaly.
I don't know. It's such a limited amount of time to scout. Why not get guys that already know each other and work well together? So I think that's part of it. I missed my must-draft guy. I don't know what, my brain is jello. It's Kyle Pitts. That's my guy.
I was surprised you didn't say it, but I thought maybe you were going for your second, since we all assumed.
No. And Kraig, in fairness to the Javonte Williams to Travis Etienne landing spot to draft capital, what are we talking? What were they, like 6 picks apart?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think it matters that much. If Javonte fell to where Michael Carter might go, who also I was quite high on, who I'm a little surprised, Kenneth Gainwell as well. Like, these are guys that at one point I had ahead of ETN in my offseason rankings. They're clearly not now. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously everyone knows T Law's a must draft. He is potentially elite. I think I'm going to go with Dyami Brown from Washington because he's not a first round type guy. You're probably getting him in the second. But I think that's a fun landing spot with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. He doesn't have to step in and really be the guy. So he's a nice depth wide receiver that you can get in the second round that I think will develop nicely because Curtis Samuel's probably not going to be on the outside. It's probably McLaurin and Brown. And I think Fitzpatrick has enough juice to get that ball moved around a lot and give some potential there. Now, I think that's more of a long term. Like, I want to draft him for the
100%.
long term. So
Yeah.
it's a must draft for me, but it's must draft because I want to see how he develops because I think that offense is really interesting. You like the running back, you like the tight end. The offensive line got better this week. You've added now all these pieces, and the defense, has gotten better. I mean, Washington's one of those teams where I think they probably have a really good shot at winning the East as it is. I mean, without even doing more, that's a really good team, and they've just gotten better, and they made good decisions.
And their defense is lights freaking out.
Yeah.
And I know we always say don't concern yourself with the here and now necessarily, but they still have to figure out their long-term quarterback because I think Fitzpatrick will be great there this year, but it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing long-term and if it's a situation that can hold up more than one or two wide receivers.
Absolutely.
That's a team that I'm actually surprised didn't take a quarterback. I thought they were going to be trading up in round 1 to grab a quarterback, but they must be comfortable with Fitzpatrick. Maybe he'll get a full year starting, and we'll see what happens. But it is interesting.
So Grant wants, Grant's having a hard time choosing between Chase and Pitts in a draft. He needs both wide receiver and tight end. Sullivan, we know, is going to say Pitts. It's Pitts. Kraig, where are you at?
I'm with Rob on this, or Sully. Someone said I threw him off yesterday when I used the wrong name, so I apologize. I'm with Sully on it. I think long term, the way it's looking now, and of course I can change. There's fewer mouths to feed. Yes, Julio is still there, but that's really up in the air. And I think that Pitts is the better overall athlete, and you can utilize tight ends in a variety of different ways to get open more than necessarily Chase. I mean, he came in there saying all the right things. He has a connection with Burrow, but how is he going to fit in there? I don't know necessarily with those three wide receivers. And yeah, they drafted some offensive line help. I think they still need more there for Cincinnati. And I like more what Atlanta is doing right now in terms of the new coach that they have and just the pieces that they're putting together right now. So with Spot and
For sure. I'm going.
What about you, Brent?
Yeah, I would go Chase all day. We talked about it last night on the show. Rick and I were on the Chase side where Sully was on his own on the Pitt side. So it's good that Sully's got some support tonight.
About time.
No, Rick wouldn't. So,
it's for me, it's tight end just has. He is the elite tight end in this draft. I am not arguing that at all. But, I just can't get behind drafting a tight end over a guy like Jamar Chase. I mean, Jamar Chase is going to be a wide receiver 1. It's not if, it's when. He's in a perfect spot with his guy. I would go Chase every time. And, but I don't hate somebody who takes Pitts over him because how often do you get a chance to draft a top, 3 to 5 tight end? You don't. It doesn't really happen very often. So I don't hate the idea of going Pitts, but I got to go Chase. Like, that's just the potential. Well, Rick's already saying it. The potential ceiling is just way too high for a guy like Chase. So Rick says it in the chat. I agree with him 100%.
We've never seen one of those can't miss, surefire wide receiver miss. Never seen it.
Absolutely. So Brandon, it's good to see you, buddy. I have 3, 4, and 5 trades, in quotes, 2 seconds, and Burrow. Oh, so he must have picks 3, 4, and 5. He has 2 seconds. Burrow and Josh Allen as my QBs. Where would you guys go? So picks 3, 4, and 5, and as well as 2 seconds, and he has Joe Burrow and Josh Allen as my QBs. You don't need quarterback when you've got those two already. So I think you have to go. Well, so at 3, if you look at this, it's Najee Harris if you were to go that route. But Brandon, I would want to know what's your roster look like? It'd be nice to know. So picks 3, 4, and 5, if you don't have a quarterback need, are you still taking best player available? Because last night when we talked about it, we were encouraging the guys to take best player available and then flip for better value. I still think I hold to that. And in this case, you would be taking a guy like a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields in this conversation. But if your team has other needs and you're ready to go, do you look elsewhere? Do you go with Najee Harris, who you know is Pittsburgh's number 1 and going to be a bell cow? Kraig, how do you feel about something like that?
Yeah, I mean, in a Superflex league, if you have those quarterbacks ranked higher in your rankings, I'd be fine taking, with, like you said, 2 of them. And then someone like Rick said, Chase or Najee, depending on who you want, Rob, or whatever.
You can call me Rob, it is my name.
I know, but I'm trying to maintain consistency and failing miserably at it. So
all good, man.
I love it.
But yeah, I like the idea of taking 2 quarterbacks and even just cornering the market. I mean, it was a different situation, but in the startup Superflex league last year, I got like the top 6 rookie picks in the auction startup, and I just stacked myself at quarterback and running back, and then I let the pieces fall where they may after, and I made trades throughout the year to put myself in a better position, which I feel going forward, where I have picks like 1, 4, and 10 or something in this draft even. So you can take those guys, especially if they start producing early, and flip them for other needs or more capital depending on where your team is. If you have, without knowing the other pieces, those 2 quarterbacks, you said they're through trades. I, like Brad, would be interested to see what the rest of your team is and where you have specific needs. But I think Rick has said it quite often, you draft for the talent and then you trade for need later, which I think makes a lot of sense in this, where you sort of control the board.
Oh, so Brandon gave us his roster. I would just go BPA. He's got Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Boyd at receiver. James Robinson, Kamara Taylor, running back, Fant Gesicki at tight end. I would be very comfortable. Yeah, I would be very comfortable taking, so 3, 4, and 5. I mean, you could easily go. So
I'd almost see if someone wants to trade for a quarterback if you're looking at those. I mean, I don't know what the guys behind you are thinking, but if there's quarterback needy teams, you might be able to move back a pick or 2 and still get 2 out of the 3 with more capital, because you already have a fantastic and young team. You can just continue to build on strengths if you really want, or if these are your guys, take them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate you coming away with Chase, Pitts, and Najee Harris. Like that's a great haul, but I think you could probably get even more value if you try to trade those picks, or if you just take, quarterback and then a couple of other a couple of those Harris. If you do that though, if you take a quarterback, I'm going Harris and Chase because your tight ends are fine. Oh.
I just don't see.
I don't know, man.
I don't see how you don't take at least 1 quarterback with those picks.
Yeah, same here.
Value-wise in a super flex, yeah.
You have to, and I'd almost want to take 2, and that's a vacuum type analysis, right? Like I don't know, to Craig's point, who's behind, what do they need, what's going on, but yeah, you have a really good stable of quarterbacks right now, but at the same time, these are also assets that you're taking away from the players that are in your league with you. So they'll come to you eventually for these guys. Your roster is rock solid as it is. You can get by without. The beautiful thing is you could probably get by without these 3 picks and you have them. So that's a wonderful situation to be in. I would take a quarterback. I would probably take 2 quarterbacks, and I would take my boy Pitts, but that's just personal preference. I think you take who you like and who you don't like. And I know the chat's having a little fun at the expense of the tight end. That's okay. I'm fine with that.
It's the Pits, man. I'll tell you, it's the Pits.
We'll see. I'll be here for a long time.
Joss, our boy Joss, it's good to see you, man. Is there any trade market for Minshew left that could matter? The stash still a stash?
I don't know. Do the Toronto Argonauts need a backup quarterback? Because that's where it is for Gardner Minshew at this point.
His 15 minutes of fame is over in your mind. Kraig,
Well,
what do you think?
Beathard's going to be their number 2 quarterback at this point.
Probably right there. What do you think, Kraig?
Yeah, I mean, there are potential places where he could go and have value. I mean, immediately coming to mind, depending on what happens, Houston, would they trade him in the division? Probably not. Depending on how things pan out, if you're getting for cheap for a year or something, Packers have him go compete with Jordan Love. You know, you guys had planned on having him sit behind Rodgers for a few years, and if you can't, he'd fit right in with most of Wisconsin. They'd fall in love with him. So that's the spot that came to mind.
I love it.
You always run into injuries, so you never know what happens in training camp or leading up here. But there's always going to be spots where someone could potentially compete for a starting spot. There's just so many more reduced at this point. I don't know that they're going to get anything for him.
Actually, Washington might be fun.
Yeah. Especially if something happens to Fitzpatrick, or if they think maybe he can take over Fitzpatrick after next year. Or I don't know if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, but he'd be exciting, you know? So.
Kyle, he is not starting in Detroit. In Goff, we trust.
Jared Goff, I believe, is going to surprise folks. The fantasy Jared Goff. I'm not so sure the real life Jared Goff is going to surprise very many people, but fantasy wise, everything's lining up for him to have a good season, in my opinion.
I think Detroit's had a sneaky good draft. They fixed the trenches. Offensive line wasn't a problem, but they made it a stronger piece. And those D tackles they added were sneaky good. You know, I like the corner as well, but those D tackles, I think they got arguably the best D tackle in the class at the second D tackle pick, and then they added some depth there. So I like what they're doing. I think Goff can be an above average starting quarterback in this league. You know, I think he can get those guys in a position to where they can weather the storm until either they can be prepared to make a playoff run and try to push for it, or be the bridge to whatever's next. Like I'm perfectly fine with him as my, QB 2-3 in a Superflex situation, and I have him in a couple spots. There's a couple leagues where there's one league where I actually have Stafford, Goff, and Aaron Rodgers. So my quarterback room is very crazy, but I'm fine with it. No, I know. It doesn't bother me. Kyle. The Lions have been made fun of forever, so I'm used to it.
I'm going to go to sleep tonight with the visions of Gardner Minshew starting for the Green Bay Packers dancing through my head. I'm going to be the happiest guy in the world. I'm going to sleep like a baby. I love it. It's fantastic.
Minshew's the man. Josh wants to know, still have Ebron in a spot. Is this the year? Poor guy.
No.
I mean, he will be on the field, but there's so many mouths to feed, and Freiermuth should get up to speed pretty quickly. I just don't I think if you have any Ebron shares left and you haven't already moved them, you're stuck with them. But
yeah,
you're
not selling them.
I'm about to say the second you get a chance, you move them.
He's going to have one of those 3 catches for 8 yards and 2 touchdown games. And then you just try to punt him as fast as you possibly can. But yeah, unfortunately, if you still have him, there's not a lot left there, I don't think.
Yeah, there's not much left. So those are all the questions we got. Is that all the questions we got? It is all the questions we got. I think it's really cool. I really appreciate the community for jumping on not only the mock draft, but here in the chat. You guys are amazing. I would make sure that if you haven't already liked and subscribed and hit the notification icon so you can stay up to date with everything we've been dropping. We dropped some ADP videos pre-draft. We are going to be live tomorrow night, so you want to know when we go live. Do that up. Make sure you stay connected to us because we are going to continue to pumping out content like crazy here on YouTube for you. Brandon, last question. I traded Akers for the 3rd overall, a 2nd this year, and a 2023 first. So he traded Akers for 2 firsts and a 2nd. I like it. I like it a lot. I like Akers, but you can get the third overall pick. Well, that's a first in 2 years and a second this year.
So let's play it through this scenario, just with who fell where here. So the third overall pick, he gets Najee Harris for Akers, and he got a second
And a first.
And well, yeah, it's
in
hard.
2 years.
Yeah, so I think it's a good deal.
Yeah.
I just really most of my leagues we can't trade that far out, and I'm glad because I don't know what's going on next week, let alone in 2 years from now, and it's really really difficult for me, not being a Devy guy, to really have a feel for what a draft class looks like that far out.
Yeah.
My understanding is the 2022 class is a pretty good running back class. So I would be okay maybe doing that, but the 2023, I just don't know what's there. But I think third overall might be the value of Akers alone. Like, and I know everyone's on the sort of the upswing with Cam Akers. He had about 3 or 4 really nice games towards the end of the season for the Rams when he was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's still only 3 or 4 nice games. So I like the upside, and don't get me wrong, I like Cam Akers a lot, but he's not a proven asset by any means. So third overall, why not? And you get a second and another first. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, Kraig, what do you think the value for Akers is straight up? Like, if you were just trading Akers for picks, what does that look like to you? What are you asking for?
If you're getting picks straight up, like you said, it's gonna have to be a high first in the year that you're aware of, where there's someone that you're gonna feel comfortable taking there, plus something on the back end. If it was a first this year and a second this year and a second next year, I wouldn't be as high on it, because I think if you're trading picks a year more out, you want to be going for those first round picks, because those are always going to retain value, as opposed to seconds. And some classes might not have as much value, like sort of we looked at. If you take away this from being Superflex, if you look at this draft board with what we know, things start to get thin fast. So I don't know if a second this year in a 1 QB league would have as much value. So I like getting the extra first, and I think I would need that, even if it is a year or two out. The 2023 draft class, it's so hard to predict these things, but there's a lot of potential big name running backs. The wide receivers, it's more unknown, oddly enough, but one of your favorites, Kayshon Boutte, headlines that. Eric Gilbert, Michael Mayer potentially, and then, quarterbacks, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and DJ over at Clemson. I mean, there could be, who knows if they stay another year or whatever, but there's a lot of big names potentially coming out of there, especially for running back. So I like it, and it's one of those things where first round picks always retain their value. So if you need to flip it or you want to flip it, you're going to be able to get something for it.
Yep, agreed.
Rock solid.
Yep, absolutely. Norris, it's good to see you. Says, nice mock. Have the 1-4, 2-2, 2-4, and late twos. Not sure where to go with 1-4. He's got Lamar, Wentz, Kirk at quarterback. He's got Dobbins, Monty, Godwin, Sutton, Kittle. So at 1-4, I know Sully would tell you, if you can get Pitts, get Pitts. I feel like he's got a piece of a note paper folded up that says, draft Kyle Pitts no matter what. Just put it out there. What would you do at 1-4, Sully?
Sorry, what's the format in this league? I'm just sitting here dodging all these bullets. I'm trying to keep up with what's going on.
I would guess it's Superflex, because he mentions 3 starting quarterbacks.
1-4, 2-2, 2-4, 2 late twos. Not sure to go with where to go with 1-4. QBs are Jackson, Wentz. I absolutely have to go quarterback at 1-4. Yeah, and I love Kyle Pitts, but I'm not taking him in any situation. And I think in that situation, you take one of 3 quarterbacks most likely that are going to be available to you.
Superflex 1.5 point tight end premium.
Ooh. I'm still taking.
Changed.
I'm still taking the quarterback. I'm just not comfortable with the quarterbacks that's there.
Jackson, Wentz, and Kirk are not giving you the warm fuzzies.
Well, I'm fine with Lamar, but after that, I think it could fall off a cliff in a hot minute. So I would definitely insure myself with some. And he's got Kittle, so he's fine.
What say you, Mr. Reith?
I mean, if at the 1-4 there's one of the if the quarterback left beyond Mack Jones is one that you like, go with it. Um, People are really split on all of these quarterbacks. I think it's probably too high for Mack Jones personally. I know some people would take him there. That to each their own.
He's
But I think it
just,
really depends on the quarterback that's there. If it's one that you want, take him.
Hmm.
But otherwise, take your top positional player.
Mack Jones is sitting firmly as late first in Superflex, even now. Yesterday, I took him at 112 in our mock. Today, he went at 111. If we follow this trajectory, he'll get to 110 if he's lucky. I mean, he's firmly late first. In theory, at 1-4, your options are going to be potentially a quarterback, which could be the lesser in of the four that are there, and then you've
Yeah.
got the top end of all the other positions. So I don't
You
hate
know,
I don't hate going quarterback here, but if the last one on the board is you know Justin Fields, I take Justin Fields. If it's any one of those top four, I'm probably taking whatever that player is because Lance is in a good spot with San Fran, Zach Wilson's in a good spot with the Jets. I like them all their landing spots. I like their potential long term. I think they're all very talented young men. So I'd be comfortable with quarterback there. Joshua,
who
what's
do you
up,
t-
brother?
who do you take in this format at 1.5 point PPR? Chase or Pitts?
Probably still Chase. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I'd have to look into it. It is now
It make
one. It is 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time where I'm at, so my brain is not firing on all cylinders when it comes to that. But I love Chase. I love Pitts. I don't think you go wrong with either position, even in a 1.5 point tight end premium.
I agree.
Okay. Let's see what else we got. Over on Facebook, one quarterback PPR. He's got 1-2, 1-5, 1-11. I need running back help badly. Harris is probably going 1. Thinking about Chase at 2. Pitts or ETN at 1-5 and best wide receiver at 1-11. Or if you need running back really badly, try to flip. What if you offer 1-2 and 1-11 to go up to 1-1? Like if that's your dire need is running back and you love Harris and you need to get Harris because he's the one that's going to help you get over the top, I wouldn't be afraid to do that. It also depends on what the rest of your roster looks like. Are you ready to compete and running back is all you need? Then you make that deal. If it's not, I think you're smart to pick a couple of really nice pieces throughout there. Kraig, how would you handle a situation like that?
Yeah, that's a lot to think about. 3, 10, 1, 5.
Yeah, 1-2,
I mean,
1-5, 1-11.
Chase at 1-2. I'm fine with Chase or Pitts at 1-2 if you're leaning Chase. I'm not going to argue it. It makes perfect sense. At 1-5, I mean, like I said, who knows going to go in between there? But if either of Pitts or ETN or I'd say Williams too are available there, I'd like that. And then you are, based on how this draft has gone so far, going to have a lot more options at wide receiver at 111 than probably running backs that you're going to want to take. So if there's two running backs that you really like, I would try to get those two at 2 and 5. But you're probably not going to get that just because of how top heavy there are, just 4 running backs, and then probably 4th, 5th rounders at best for most of the others.
There you go, Mr. Sullivan. What's your thinking?
Yeah, it's a lot to digest, and I think the cop-out simple answer is just take the best player available to you on the board. Don't worry too much about the positional play. You can always make some moves after the fact. There's going to be someone in your league with running backs that wants Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts or whoever that might be, and you never know. You might be drafting with a guy like me who would take Pitts at 1, and Najee will fall right to you at 2.
There you go. Hopefully, Sully's in your league with you. So yeah. Okay. So Kyle says the QB tier is now 3 QBs to him after numerous teams passed on Mack and Fields that needed quarterbacks, and San Fran clearly saw cutoff after those 3 quarterbacks as well. So do you guys feel like there's a big break between the top 3 and then those next 2? I see Sully shaking his head. He doesn't seem to be buying it. Where are you at, Kraig?
No, I mean, to me, it's three quarterbacks, tier break, and then Jones farther down. I have Lance Fields as my three, and I have a tier break with Wilson then, and then another tier break, probably a larger one with Mack Jones. Mack Jones, I think, could end up being a perfectly fine starting pro quarterback and completely functional for you in fantasy too. But I think going over this probably ad nauseum on other streams, I don't think he has the upside that the others do. But we could be wrong. I mean, we've seen guys like him be fine before. Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to use a Tom Brady comparison just because he's in New England and they had similar body types coming out. We're not likely to get that result again. But for me, it's 3-1, and then farther down 1.
For sure. Yeah, I don't have a problem with those tiers. I tend to just lump the four quarterbacks together and then Mac Jones late first. But I don't break that tier up, but Najee, Chase, and Pitts are kind of sprinkled in there. If it's a super flex league, I'm probably going Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, Najee, Chase, Fields, Pitts. I mean, like something like that where you have, three guys probably right stacked together and then something sprinkled in there based on scoring and then the quarterback and then some more stuff. You got ETN and Williams and some of these others. And then Mac is, like I said, Mac Jones. I have no problem, depending on the format, taking him anywhere from 110 to 112. That's really, in my mind, the sweet spot for him. Over on Facebook, is 111 too early for a quarterback? So I'm guessing this is a one quarterback league. They did not confirm it, but I would venture to bet it. Their quarterbacks currently are potential free agent quarterback Aaron Rodgers and Big Ben. Sully, how do you feel? Are with that set of quarterbacks? Are you willing to draft one at 111?
I think personally for me, it's early, but I also would not fight anyone that wanted to take whoever their quarterback one is in this class in that spot. I'm comfortable early second round for not all of them, but for Lawrence and maybe Lance. But 111, why not? If you need a quarterback, like what are you looking at in the one QB league right now off the top of your head? What do you think you're looking at as players on the board there? Like, is that Trey Sermon or Trevor Lawrence?
So Najee, Pitts, Chase, ETN, Waddle, Smith, Williams, Bateman. Yeah, I mean,
maybe Bateman.
You're getting to the point in the draft where it's like a Bateman, Trey Sermon, Elijah Moore.
So I think I'm okay taking him at 11.
Yeah, I mean,
to be honest,
with the way this draft has fallen so far, Kraig, what are you thinking about it?
That's what I was looking at. I mean, if you're looking at the types of guys at 111, 11 on here without them is like Amari Rogers and Kadarius Toney. If you have a need at quarterback in a one QB league, I'm fine with taking your top guy there to make sure that you get him, given the problems that you seem to be running into at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and it's crazy to think about it because we would have said, and normally I don't touch quarterbacks till the second round. I don't jump on them. I have done some in the past in a dire situation if the need arose, but typically, I'm not really in a big hurry to grab one. I don't, and with the Rodgers stuff, like in a one QB league, I don't necessarily worry so much because you're going to be able to trade for one. Or acquire one in some way, shape, or form like that. I don't know that I buy into the hype about Rodgers retiring and doing some of those things. He really enjoys the game. He loves to compete. Like, I just can't see him really doing that. Now, obviously, there's a divide. You have to fix that. But the Packers are perennial playoff contenders, potential Super Bowl contenders. Why on earth would they not try to fix it? So in my mind, like, I don't necessarily buy into the hype. I know Aaron Rodgers is willing to do whatever he feels like he needs to do to get what he desires, but if there's another position there that you're in need of and the talent is there, don't be afraid to take that there at 111 either, though. So I'm giving you both sides of that coin. So, good luck. That'll be
Given what we've seen from Rogers and how he treats other situations that are confrontational or hostile, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just out of spite say, "Screw you guys! I'm taking my ball and going home." I think it's firmly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, the range of outcomes on Aaron Rodgers is pretty wild right now. It's from anything of going back to Green Bay and like nothing ever happened to potentially Denver. There's probably 24 teams in the NFL that would make the trade for Aaron Rodgers tomorrow if they gave him the opportunity.
Yeah.
Or he walks away and he enjoyed hosting Jeopardy. Maybe he does that for a while. Like he's got all the options. Financially, he's set. He's won a Super Bowl. So yeah, Craig's right. He could just say, "I don't want to do this anymore. See you guys later. Bye."
Yeah. So Kyle has an interesting comment over here on YouTube. He says, "Am I wrong to have lost confidence in the Jags organization after taking a running back so high? I'm tempted to take Lance over Lawrence because I believe in the system more. Kind of feel this Urban Meyer is bad." You go, Lawrence. Like
I
I'm
agree.
taking Lawrence no matter what. Kraig, how do you feel? Are you concerned about what Jacksonville has done?
I have just general concerns over Urban Meyer in the NFL. We haven't seen what it's going to look like for his offense yet, and clearly, he's thinking of getting weapons around and even protecting with some of his picks his offensive franchise quarterback, generational, some people call him quarterback. I don't think Urban is going to do anything to jeopardize Lawrence or put him in a position to fail. I just don't know what it looks like. So I do understand the hesitation. Lawrence is a better quarterback now, and I think probably in the end will be than Lance, even though I really do like Lance in the system. We've seen quarterbacks that have supposedly been amazing go and have rough years. Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman to start their careers. I mean, it was rough, and they ended up panning out for the time that they were in. So I'm not just going because I like this system better right now. We saw it with the Jets. This stuff can overturn quickly. Same thing with Houston. Stuff changes fast in the NFL. Even when you don't think teams have money, they're able to change it. So I go with the better talent is what I would say.
Trevor Lawrence will outlast Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. I guarantee it, especially if it goes off the rails.
Yeah, I can't see them keeping that staff around long if it's not working. I mean, they want to win. You can see that the ownership's really putting an emphasis on getting that turned around.
Yep.
So there you go, Kyle. We do, and I on to the flip side of it, I do like where Lance went. I think San Francisco is a solid organization. They make good choices. They do good drafting. So Lance is a solid option, but you got to go with the talent. And Lance is talented, but Lawrence is much more talented. So there you go. If you guys have questions, hit us up. Our handles are Twitter or above our names or below our names, not above, below our names. If you need to get a hold of us, shoot us a message. Hit us up on Discord. The Facebook community is growing leaps and bounds. If you haven't already, make sure you do the notification icon, everything. After round 7 tomorrow, we will go live for 5 rounds. We will show you and get you everything that we can. RotoHeat.com has ADP. It has rankings. RookieDraftGuide.com. If there's a rookie on here that you're unsure of or not aware of, go there. We've got film. We've got everything for you so you can get ready for your rookie drafts. That's it. We are done. We love you guys. We will talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck. Hopefully your team made good decisions. And if they didn't, well, there's always tomorrow.